To ask you if you're surprised that Shaq is still salty, but Shaq still being salty is probably the least surprising thing ever. But what do you think of the vote?
Man, I don't blame Shaq, and I love Freddie Hickman. You know I love you, but you blew this, buddy. You just did. This was Shaq at his best. He averaged 40 minutes a game. He averaged almost 30 and 13. And Iverson that year, 4.7 assists. Shaq, 3.8 assists. Only had as many assists. And what Phil Jackson said was, big man, you don't have to practice. You can sit, have your tea, work on the exercise bike. But when you come out, I want you to give me everything. And he did. This is one of the greatest NBA seasons of any player ever.
No, I mean,
he deserved to be
You were on the court against him.
Right? Wasn't he? He was unstoppable that year.
What did that feel like? What was it like?
It wasn't fun. It was not fun playing against Shaq. You know, I didn't fear too many players during my career, but Shaq was one of those guys that I feared. And the fact that you had to come down and double team on him, he had the speed, the power, the spins. He was just a very difficult guy for us to defend as a team. Not for me as an individual, but I had to come down and double team.
Yeah.
And that was almost worse than guarding him because he was swinging with his arms.
He had a temper.
Shaq was never, he had a temper, but you know what? Even if he turned and hit you, he'll like give you a look like, see you're okay.
Yeah, remember that. Yeah.
But, you know, he was just such a dominant player, and I have to agree, they blew it because Shaq was a special player.
Would you be bruised up after playing him?
Yeah, I mean, our whole game plan was if you're going to double team Shaq, you better get there before the ball get there. Because if you get there after, you're just going to be part of a poster.
Yeah, I mean, look, Richard Jefferson was on our show the other day, and he was talking about playing Shaquille O'Neal's Lakers team in the NBA Finals, right, when Richard was on the Nets. And he said, they were like, well, we hope Kobe's the one trying to shoot, which is like a sentence that should never come out of your mouth, but it was just compared to Shaq. They were like, Shaq.
He was never the same, really, again, because he was pretty injury-free that year, and he started to have little things that went wrong after that. That was vintage Shaq. It was never that good again for him.
Even I, who believes that Allen Iverson is a saint that should be recognized as such, would have said, look, Shaq deserved it that year. I want to know what you think about the fact that Michael Jordan never got a unanimous MVP, that in fact the first player to ever get it took all the way to Steph Curry.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty shocking, but, you know, you have to give credit to the other players that played in that era.
Right.
You know, Shaq's season was truly a tremendous season. Obviously, Steph had one of the greatest seasons of all time, shooting the basketball and winning the amount of games that they won in that one season, which really made them stand out. But yeah, Michael, you know, there was always Charles Barkley, guys that competed, Hakeem Olajuwon. So there was always a few votes that were kind of shared. He never really dominated the game on the court where people just saw him being so dominant like they did with Shaq, like they did with Steph.
But they should have. They should have. Although, you know, part of it was because he played with you, honestly, because you were such a high-caliber Hall of Fame player. I think that was part of it.
Well, they didn't give me no votes.
I know they didn't.
But I do think to Jackie's point, right? So you see players on that list, and obviously we know Steph Curry won 2 MVPs. We know Kevin Durant won an MVP, but once they started playing together, they weren't in the lead, really in the running for getting another MVP because they said, oh, well, they had him, and I think that MJ had that same effect because, hey, well, he has Scottie, and so people sort of took some of that away.
Maybe that's what Freddie Hickman was thinking because Shaq did have a young Kobe Bryant.
It's so interesting, though, the word dominant, right? Because you can have arguments of who the greatest player of all time is, and I actually recently it's been more players have come out and said, come on, we can't keep having this debate because everyone's different, eras are different.
Who do they say is the most dominant?
Players are different. Michael Jordan's still tops.
Well, I mean, I never played against Michael to that degree. To me, Shaq was the most dominant. Well, that's what I was going to say. So Michael Jordan sort of still tops people's list of best player, but when they say most dominant, it is Shaq. You're absolutely right. And it's an interesting distinction to me.
Unstoppable when he was...
I would say Michael is probably the most unstoppable.
Yes.
But when you talk about dominant, like, we used to have to try to stop Shaq from running. Like, that was kind of the game plan. Like, don't let Shaq run. Right. You know, it's like, don't even think about him getting the ball. Just stop him from running. He's gonna beat most of the players down the court.
Amazing.
Nimble big guy. Very nimble.
There you go.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports analysis and highlights, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.